Thank you, Richard. And we're gonna change the drinks to like a campfire, and we're gonna have a kumbaya moment. But it's very important. You know, the collaboration really is key to making all this happen. So let's bring up Joe Mandese, editor-in-chief of MediaPost, who has a great panel here that he will introduce of data gurus from the media buying agency world. So Joe?
Okay, in the spirit of real time and to keep things moving, let's just get everybody up on stage. I'll introduce them quickly, and then we'll go quickly into some presentations, and we'll follow up with a little bit of probing questions, and then we'll turn it over to you guys to ask. So with no further ado, we have Kate Sirkin, who is Executive Vice President, Global Research for Starcom MediaVest Group. We have Jed Meyer, who is U.S. Research Director of Analect, which is Omnicom Media Group's trading desk and real-time data company. We have Bob Ivins, who's Chief Data Officer of Mindshare, part of WPP Group. And we have Keith Camoosa, who is Managing Director, Research and Analytics for Magna Global, which is part of the Interpublic Group of companies. So I think it's best if you see in the order I call you. So Kate, Jed, Bob, Keith, because that's the way your slide will read. I don't think anybody will mistake Kate, but maybe the others. And you know what, I'll sit there while you guys present, and then I'll come back up here for questions.
Hey there. So I'm going to talk a bit about the future of data-driven media buying agency. And I think I'm going to be a bit controversial this afternoon. I'm not going to talk about the measurement companies at all, because I want to think more about what's the environment we're all going to be working in, and then think about what's the role for the measurement companies within that environment. It's a lot of work we've been doing over the last few months at SMG to lay out our future for the next 5 or so years, and think about how we need to be building our capabilities and thinking about the products and services and skill sets that we're going to need. Adam mentioned it a little while ago, but our belief and the way that we operate in the business is we believe that experiences matter, they enhance lives and build brands. We design and deliver experiences for communities of people with common interests that are tailored to their individual needs and preferences, allowing them to interact, contribute, and share. That's what we believe the future of marketing to be. And those are driven from a springboard of deeper human understanding. And through that, we ensure that our experiences are data-inspired, digitally enabled, and content-rich to delight people's senses, capture their imagination, and make them buy stuff that the advertisers want them to buy, ultimately. But it's about rich human understanding that really does drive some of those experiences, and experiences we know when they're digitally enabled create data. And that's the vision and the marketplace that we expect to operate in the future. We spent some time talking to some of the experts, some of whom are in the room today, and we thank you for that. But just trying to understand from their perspective what they saw as the future of the media agency. And I think, I'm not going to take you through all of these, it's kind of too hard to read right now, but the most important thing to me that came out of here was it was about the integration of data sets and the expertise that was driven through scale and deep human understanding, transparency of access to insights, and integration of those data sets across all of that different inventory. And so from that, we talked about 5 key trends, which I'm going to go through right now, which I think lay out our perspective on the marketplace. Much of that is driven by digital, but as we know, digital is going to be more pervasive across everybody and every action as we move through the future. So the first one is about scarcity versus abundance. And if we think about how that applies to the marketplace of today, we see it in terms of scarcity. Today we have high demand and low supply of some of the inventory that we want to buy across premium video, premium display, analog video, publisher content. There's a marketplace there that right now is being traded direct to those publishers. And our expectation for that in the future is that starts to move to private exchanges. And what that means is, from a data perspective, is that there's a value, an increased value placed on that data. And technology has to be built in order to allow people to take advantage of that data. And on the other hand, there's an abundance model. Right now, we see high supply and low demand for that. And that's all the stuff, a lot of the stuff that goes through a lot of the exchanges today right now, which can be done programmatically, real time, and machine to machine. There's a lot of that, we know in display, in search, in mobile, and some of that in social. And our expectation about that in the future is that moves to more of a machine-to-machine marketplace, and that continues to accelerate the supply of it and the use of it and the ability to turn around the effectiveness of that. So we know what we need to buy, we buy it quickly, our ads are served, and that kind of moves along. And the balance and the skill set from the agency side is understanding which of those is important for what messages, and what price to pay for those different types of inventory. I think that takes me on to my next slide is, machines are great, but human knowledge and insight is more important than ever in that machine-to-machine world. Something I noted and read a couple of weeks ago is that data can make smart people dumb or smart people smart. And there's an interesting fact that emerged that whenever Anne Hathaway is mentioned, any of her films, the stock price of Berkshire Hathaway goes up. And it's generally because she appears in good films, and she's usually pretty good. So the sentiment around those conversations about her are always positive. And it takes the marketplace a little while to understand what that reaction is and then reset itself. But something to watch out for if you want to make some money. One of the other things that we talked about was the need for understanding the right skill sets that our industry is going to need in the future. And if you look at the securities and exchanges business, as that automated and moved to more programmatic, employment actually went up, but it was a different type of employment that was needed in that industry. So I think that's important to note. We're not going to move to a place where it's just all about machines and there's not going to be anybody needed in the media industry. And within that area, some people do well and some people do less well. And it's about their use of data and technology with smart people that drives how that works out. I think the third thing that's going to be important is all marketers and everybody really in the industry will have access to technology. And it's the integration across that technology stack that defines competitive advantage. We all know if we think today, in today's digital world, this is all developing in early stages. But across the different phases of data integration, we think about who's managing clients' and advertisers' customer data today, who is defining what's possible to do with that within the digital world. How do we then activate against that? How do we then buy and measure? What's the role for the agency within that piece? And then how do we understand its impact? And no one company in that world is going to win. We all talked about Google being the frenemy a couple of years ago, but I think we've all seen a number of other players come up and compete with them, even though they still are a huge piece of our world. There are other players besides them. Winners will use many stacks to gain knowledge quickly, and it's about the speed and the skill and that technology stack that's going to help drive the future. And understanding that fragmentation is going to be critical. A few media companies will control most of the valuable registration data. When I first started to think about putting this together with the team, I kept on saying, what about cross-channel? What about the ESPNs and the ABCs and the NBCs of the world? And I think today, Comcast is obviously prime place to start doing that. I would love to see a space where the next layer of this is some of the media companies more represented in the room today. I'm sure that'll happen. These things change really quickly. But registration IDs will be the new cookies, and the companies will be careful to share how they think about that inventory and some of that data more broadly, unless they're going to generate huge revenue from it. And success will be measured by marketers and agencies that, again, are able to integrate across those different stacks what's the most valuable pieces of information. And somebody mentioned earlier, how do you think about good data versus bad data? When you're looking at data across all of these different platforms, you start to see, how many of them align and point to what's good and what's bad. And I think the final of the 5 is scale starts to be redefined as market maker access and what can we do with some of the partnerships that we have in the world. We've spent the last couple of years building partnerships with a number of different companies across lots of different areas of expertise, but it's all been about building expertise across data, measurement, content, technology, some about creative as well. And I think that's what's going to help us understand and be able to activate things quicker in the future. As we think about our roadmap for the future, the 70 is where we are today and probably where we are for the next couple of years in terms of driving the majority of our revenue and our capability and inventory exposures, however you want to measure it for our clients. We spend a lot of time on the 20, thinking there about how do we scale our capabilities and what data do we need across search, social, mobile, content, data analytics, and programmatic. But our expectation is that 20 moves into the 70 in the next couple of years quickly, and it's just done as part of routine. It's not the investment area, it's the maintenance area. And the 10 moves to the 20, and then something else fits into that 10. And I think that's the exciting part of the business. We don't quite know what that next 10 is yet, but what's going to drive that and who should we be working with to get best advantage in that 10. As data becomes centric to marketing, the agency holding company ecosystem will continue to evolve. I've been in the media side of that business for a long time, and it's great to see, it's truly my belief that media is the center of that and has access to the capabilities to build content, to generate ideas, to run and help clients with commerce, and connect those things together because we are the people that truly allow you to reach your target consumers at the end of the day. And the speed at which we can do that is critical. Wow, this one's not come out very clearly. I think as it relates more closer into today, I wanted to just give a quick view of how we think about the future of video and how the data piece falls into that. We have a sort of a roadmap of how we think it's expanding. And I think about today, we really spend a lot of time focusing on data-driven linear television. So we're buying television more smartly and more precisely than we've ever done before. And a lot of the efforts that SMG leads in the addressable world is about this. A lot of the work that we do with Rentrax and TRAs and Nielsen Catalina fits into this bucket. It's really about making the TV that we do today much smarter and more precisely delivered to the consumer. Addressable, again, extends to the next phase when it truly gets to 60, 70% of the population of the US. Merging the set-top box data is truly into our systems, and it becomes more of a routine buy. Then if we think about first screens connected with over-the-top and devices such as Xbox and Roku and Apple TV, our expectation is that's going to be much more widely available over the next 18 months and will become a real option for scaled campaigns and activation. Then first screen active amplification and first screen passive amplification. So what does a consumer need to do as they start to watch a TV with their second screen and their third screen? And how do advertisers build content that's going to take advantage of that and add more value to the viewing experience? And then finally, to think about multi-screen digital video, where all of these things are available across all of the different types of content, across all of the different devices. A couple of years away for that to be scaled. That's truly when we can think about today's digital data-driven world being truly holistically available to all of our advertising content that we run for clients. That's it.
Hi, I've just got a few short slides, so we'll make up a little bit of time in my section. What I want to do is share with you the Analect perspective on cross-platform data-driven media buying and planning, and it's really quite simple from our perspective. And what you're seeing is a move from the history of the past, where you basically had media driving data decisions, and data was only for digital. It's getting a lot broader. That data drives media decisions, And we really see data as driving 360-degree insights across all the different platforms and all the different consumers. And that we think is here to stay, and it's obviously moving faster, as Kate was talking about, in some parts of the media than others, but we think that's the future. And really, we can summarize our approach in one very simple kind of slide, which is the data that we look to ingest into Analect. It comes from all different properties and research companies and some media companies where we have over 30 APIs where we bring the data in. And our goal from a measurement perspective is to really change the dialogue and how we work with the research companies to get more respondent level data and more raw data and let us manipulate it and connect it to other things and less have it be about the user interface that a ComScore or Nielsen or another company provides to us. So once we take those APIs into Analect, what we do is we put that in our Agile data warehouse. And you can see that there's all kinds of data that we're going to put into that warehouse. Some of it's going to be measurement data that comes from research companies. Some of it's going to be CRM data that's from our clients. Some of it's other third-party data, search. You can read the slide. It's really quite simple. There is an element of that which a team of people at Analect does, which is cleansing that data, understanding how the acuity of that data, modeling that data, and then connecting that to other things. And we see that leading into three buckets: technology, tools, and consulting, which we then develop those proprietary tools for our clients, develop new technologies, and then also provide the consultancies back to our clients to connect all those things together. One of the things that hasn't come up that much today, but we thought it was interesting to talk about was that in the digital world, we're not talking about cookies, and Kate alluded to this a little bit as well. But basically, it's all about how do you corroborate identities, and the theme of the conference is cross-platform media. So we actually haven't heard that much about DMPs up here today, which I'm surprised, but most of the conferences I go to, that's like you hear a lot about DMPs, or data management platforms. And the idea to us about a data management platform is that how do you get all the data and aggregate it together in one place, and then how do you try to identify those people and connect them through all those devices. So the most important thing, I don't think there's a laser thing on this, but is the middle of the screen, which is how can you identify people and then connect their email address in a privacy-compliant way with their wireless number, their IP address, and their landline, and their postal number. And that way you can bring in, again, some of the data elements from those 30 APIs and connect those through the DMP to identify people and not just cookies, or at least individual identities. And the volume of data, one of the things I'm sure Joe will talk about with the panel is how much data is too much data. There's an incredible amount of data. Over 2 million, our DMP provider gets over 2 million inbound updates every day. So if you think about the volume of how that works, it's really mind-boggling. And from an Omnicom perspective, at Omnicom Media Group, we are rolling this out across all of our clients on a global basis today, so that for all the clients that we have, we're working with them to bring their data into this DMP and then activate on that. So when we talk about the future of agencies and the future of media planning and buying, it really becomes how can we activate on that and make intelligent decisions more quickly on behalf of our clients. So the final slide I'm going to share is this example. In the past, we might be thinking about this is for a company that's interested in coffee drinkers. In the past, we might be talking about a broad demographic, an adult 25 to 54 or something like that. Through the DMP, what we can do is understand, oh, there's roughly 43 million people that have had an interaction with something related to coffee, some sort of affinity to coffee drinking. And so we can identify those people or proxies for those people, and then we can go ahead and activate them. And in this particular case, the idea is how do you activate that on a mobile platform? Because if you want to reach people on the go when they're thinking about coffee, how can you do that? And this, to us, is part of the real-time activation, which is we get that information in, and then we can go ahead and execute the campaign through, in this case, a generic mobile ad network. Names were removed to protect everybody. And so therefore, we net out the 43 million down to 36 million, which is actually a more realistic target for those people to engage with either an offer or a brand kind of message. And the last thing I'll say, it's not a slide, the last thing I'll say is to touch on something that Kate talked about, which is, to us, more and more, it's really about change management and how we identify the right people to change the DNA of the agency. A lot of the people at Analect, such as myself and a lot of other folks, are not traditional agency folks. We come from different places, and the idea is how do you bring in people that have a different perspective on the media buy and sell equation. And then how do you manage that change for the agency? We support OMD and PhD and the other Omnicom brands. How do we manage that change as we move from that old world, the first slide, to the new world? And how do we do that with our clients and then also with the data providers and the vendors and things like that? Thanks very much.
Hey, thanks. First of all, Jane, thank you for having me, the invitation to come here. I really appreciate it. I know it's late in the afternoon, so I'll try to keep it brief. I'm trying to figure out, I'm shocked how many people are here. I don't know whether this is a really important topic or it's the promise of free drinks that we're here. I will keep it brief because for two reasons. One, it's late in the day, and two, I just found out that we needed slides 2 days ago, so I threw something together. So short on content, I'll start with a joke. It'll be a numbers joke. My daughter, who was 6 at the time, who's now a senior in high school, came to me one day and was like, what did the 0 say to the 8? Nice belt. That was her little joke. So it's appropriate. It's appropriate in this kind of environment. He, according to the press release, I was the first chief data officer at a media agency. So I'm assuming that's true. At least the press release said that. And I get this question a lot, so I thought I would address it up front. Regardless of what I actually get done in my day-to-day job, I think it's really a statement by Mindshare and Group M and WPP that we need to put data at the center of what we do. That the business is changing and that data, because it's a byproduct of almost all of media, is critically important for us, and I'll get to some of that in a second. So with respect to how do I view my job and what do I view my to-do list, the first thing is raise the math SAT scores of our organization. If I look out on the floor that I'm on and I see a lot of young kids out there, every time they come into my office, I have them put their little dot on my scatter diagram of English SATs or math SATs and English SATs. And no offense to anybody who ever majored in communications or advertising, but the vast majority of them are back here in the bottom quadrant because there was absolutely no math requirement. As this industry gets more data heavy, math heavy, we need to really raise the SAT scores. We need to move the population of our organizations, not only the agencies, but the buying and the selling and the whole industry up into the top right quadrant. We're not going to do that by hiring alone, because if you go find a math or a data scientist, they're not necessarily interested in coming to Mindshare. They want to go to the Googles or the Facebooks or the Wall Streets of the world. So we need to do both, a better job of hiring and a better job of training our own people. And as I said, putting data at the center of the organization is kind of the mantra that we have. I think, as I said earlier, every bit of media produces data as a byproduct, and our job is to ingest, enhance, and interrogate that data so that we can improve the product the next time around. And I really, really think about this every day that I go to the office, and I think that's my number one thing. And then the second thing that kind of plays out to, I think media needs its Moneyball moment. And I know that's an easy soundbite to talk about, but I think because we have this information available to us, I think we need to take advantage of it. I've always thought when I talk about the Moneyball moment that I would be the Brad Pitt. I'd be cast in that role, but unfortunately I'm Jonah Hill in this situation. So I view it as in two things, or in three or four things. It's data, it's technology, it's the analytical capabilities, and then it's the data scientists. And I think about our world, we have a lot of data. We just talked about it, and we're talking about it again and again. We need to take advantage of it. It's coming from multiple sources. It's coming, organized and unorganized. We have new analytics. We have attribution down at the household level. We have new technologies. We have, multiple processing. We have cloud-based processing. And we have an influx of data scientists, again, not necessarily into the Mindshares of the world, but into the Googles. And then if you translate it into the baseball analogy, Moneyball analogy, it's a little bit different. They didn't really have any new data. Jonah Hill, in this example, was using the baseball abstract, which is around since the 70s. They were using correlation coefficients, which is around since the 1800s. And I can do that on my HP 12C calculator that I still own since college days. And they had a BA in economics, not even an MS like I have, albeit from Harvard. He was from Harvard. the real difference of what they have is where they had a management structure that was able to take an insight and create and translate that into an action. And I think as an industry, this is what we really need to focus on. Our organizations need to be built to not only generate these insights from new data, new technologies, new processing, new analytics, but we need to be able to take actions on that. And I think this is the most important piece that we need to think about as we go forward into cross-platform media measurement. I'm going to leave you with this thought. This is something I actually threw on a piece of paper back in the mid-'80s when I worked at Nielsen, when Nielsen organization was migrating from audit-based collection methodology in the grocery store to scanner-based collection methodology. And I said, data is going to continue to get more granular, more available, more accurate, more timely, and it's our job to take advantage of that information. And at that time, it was to drive price promotion activities that we were doing, real-time inventory management, et cetera, et cetera. But I think this holds true, and I think if we as an industry don't recognize it, we're in a great spot today, but it's going to get faster, it's going to get more granular, it's going to get more accurate, it's going to get more timely, and it's going to get more actionable, and we need to get on that bus, now rather than wait a year from now or 2 years from now, because it's just going to get more and more complex. So as an industry, Mindshare is putting data at the center of it. We're getting aggressive about trying to create applications and insights and drive actions with our customers. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me here, Jane. So I'm going to have a presentation that's a little bit different than the others. Hopefully this won't be too boring. We'll touch a little bit on consumers and changes in consumer use of technology. And then I'll talk to you a little bit about the way that we're thinking about data differently and some of the things that we've been learning from using new and different types of data than those we've used in the past. So, as everyone is saying, it is true. The industry is changing. It's happening not evenly, but the industry is moving from being the media buying and planning industry from more relationship-based to more of a data-driven based. And the reason this is happening is because media has fundamentally changed. It used to be that there were a few media outlets where all of us got our information. We used to consume it as a family together. And this happened for decades. Now, things have changed. We have more devices, there's more content, there's more choice. We often consume media alone on our phones or devices. And everything is becoming digital. So content delivery is digital. Ad delivery is digital. Traditional media is becoming more digital. This has led to more media consumption than we've ever had before. In a given week, consumers, on average, are spending about 81 hours with media. It's more time, hopefully, than people are working. Probably more time than they're sleeping. About 65% of TV time is now shared time, whether it's a laptop, tablet, or a mobile phone. And this is happening really fast. It's happening faster than the industry is able to keep up with. And within our industry, although we're all here working together to change it, the industry is really struggling to keep up. We still predominantly plan media, one channel at a time. We still have arbitrary rules of thumbs that planners use. And this context here is more about general advertising planning, not so much on the programmatic side. And until very recently, all of our media research was also in silos. We have Nielsen for TV, Arbitron for radio. So this was the way things were. The research and the data that we could have access to was also siloed. Created sort of a self-fulfilling nature of our ability to plan cross-channel, could only plan based on the data that we had available. Sort of also led to a situation where a typical planner or buyer at an agency is working with multiple UIs, multiple research tools. And that's not really something that's practical. It was very difficult to plan media holistically across channel against a given group of consumers. So things started changing. So we evolved from diaries to meters that don't forget what we did. And this happened across TV, radio, happened in digital, obviously. And so now what we're moving to are giant databases that are aligned to individuals or households, or a combination of both. These are efforts where databases combine respondent-level data from research providers. This data is often merged with fusion from traditional sources of media research, like large surveys. And then we combine this with census-like data, whether it's set-top box or information about consumers that live in the US. So we're putting all of these things together, creating a data stack. And we believe that the future state for general media planning is a combination of all these things. So a hybrid approach that involves panels, involves fusion, and involves log data. So these same giant big databases are the same databases that are fueling programmatic. Programmatic is changing quickly. You know, just a few years ago, it was search and display. Now it's mobile and video. Now there's TV-based exchange buying. So things are changing quickly. So what does the future of media buying looks like? Probably a split between things that can be automated and bought programmatically, and then the custom content that needs humans and thinking and consumer insights to put sort of a custom program together. So these two things need to be balanced, but this is sort of where it's headed, a split between the two types. So how we've been trying to adjust to this new world, about 3 or 4 years ago, we went to our research partners and asked for the same data that was in the UIs to have it respondent level. So we could work freeform outside the limitations of a UI. And we could also match panels from different companies together, creating our own single sources to sort of make up for some of the deficiencies that were available in sort of the off-the-shelf capacity from the research supplier industry. We have also had to hire new types of talent that we've been talking about today. So statisticians and data scientists and programmers and software developers and database architects. So the types of people that we're hiring are changing quickly. So, and along with that, we've had to invest in technology, enterprise-grade databases and software applications. All these things are very expensive. And I think part of the challenge, perhaps, that we all struggle with is that in a world with limited resources, we are still beholden to all of our traditional media costs that we have to pay for. So things like ratings and sort of planning tools. But at the same time, we need new information and new data. So I think, at least I would like to see some adjustments in the industry in terms of where dollars are spent, in terms of putting more dollars into what's more useful. So I thought I would share just a couple of tactical examples of how this sort of data is changing media research. So we're less reliant on the use of off-the-shelf syndicated tools, less attention on ratings, more attention on finding the people who are likely to buy our clients' products, how to measure the effect of that advertising, and then how to optimize it. We're increasingly working with clients that have CRM databases to match their databases to media consumption so that we can plan very precisely, but also measure on the back end in sort of a direct marketing construct where we do matchback analytics, linking exposure directly to sales. We're now able to deliberately plan across channel because we've combined data from different sources so we can get a more holistic view of consumers and how they consume across platform. You know, and we're changing some of the old rules. So even like very simple things that like reach and frequency, we're now beginning to understand how much reach do we need at what level of frequency to generate a certain level of ad response. So moving away from the rules of thumb. We're also getting very, very granular understanding of overlap between ad exposure across channel and across properties, which is key to optimizing media, understanding where you're reaching folks, where you're not, and how to get to that effective frequency that drives a response. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, that was really interesting. I took some notes. That's why I have the computer. I heard, okay, one reference to programmatic, one reference to DMP, one reference to cookie, one reference to attribution. I didn't hear any reference to real time. And I didn't hear any reference to audience buying. And even though this panel is labeled as data-driven media buying, to me the biggest shift that's taken place in the shift towards data-driven and programmatic media planning and buying has really been the shift from buying media inventory to buying audiences. And Kate, you kind of alluded to that. It's all about the human factor. That's your DNA. I just want to open up by asking, you know, it's what we've been writing a lot about. Do you agree that we're shifting as an industry from buying media inventory to buying audiences that happen to be in media environments? Just like to get a sense of that. And if so, how is that represented by the shift?
I'd say yes. I would think of it less about audience buying, think about it more precise data-driven targeting, which I guess is the same thing, but that's just the language.
Well, in the past, we bought media as a proxy for audience.
Right. Well, in the past,
Right.
you had to use a demo.
Right.
And now you have
Of
more data
stuff.
available to be able to say, rather than my coffee example, rather than just buying adults, I mean, women 25, 54, we can buy people who have an affinity for coffee.
Right, and I liked your example where you just had a whole string of different types of coffee buys because you don't know which one of them is the right one at the right time. You have to collapse that data together and start to understand that data rather than just know the answer right away. You have to look at the data.
Right, and the other thing that you can do now when you're buying that way is it's more real time. So you can activate through these new technologies, which to me the biggest disruption is the technology and the fact that you have all this new data and you're not just waiting for a weekly ratings report or a monthly whatever report. It's in real time, and so you can act on that more quickly and catch consumers more in the moment. It doesn't mean everything's going to be bought that way, but that you have that ability.
We'll go deeper into programmatic, but so I heard two maybes on the shift to audience buying.
I definitely think because you have behavioral data collected passively at scale, you're getting robust profiles at scale, and it's moving towards audience buying. Absolutely.
I would agree. I mean, I think it all starts with market sizing and segmentation. So once we know who the best target is for an advertiser, then we determine the best way to reach that audience. Audience buying is certainly very effective, but also planning discretely against certain content is also a smart thing to do because we can learn from the data what content is most engaging, where are people spending more time. So often those properties where they are spending time and they have premium content present opportunities to create something special, something unique.
Okay. So Kate, you were the only one who had a slide that really showed the either or, of buying media traditionally versus buying it programmatically. And I'd like to ask you all, like, what are you learning in terms of, well, let me ask you, are we really shifting or from one to another, because I don't want to put words in your mouth, or are we evolving as the description of this panel suggests, and what are we evolving to?
I think we're evolving, and I think the biggest question right now is how much do you put in each of them? Because the way that you think about them, as you just said, is very differently. The content that you need to create for the premium buys can have much richer, more time and effort spent against it versus the programmatic. You learn very quickly what's working and what's not working, and you kind of rotate that in and out. So I think evolution is a good way of thinking about it, and also the learning that you get from the DR type work that we do and the brand building work. Again, those are kind of merging and evolving as well. So it's the balance is the big question that we're all trying to uncover on a daily, weekly basis.
I'd agree with that. I don't think it's a black or white thing. It's an evolution. And I think some of these marketplaces can go more quickly because it's easier to decide quickly and the data is there for display or something, But when you look at the overall volumes, I think it was Magna that put out something in the past couple of days about the volume that's gone up in terms of programmatic. There's no question there's an evolution towards that, but that doesn't mean it works for everything. And it also means that there's still other opportunities where sponsorships or more premium inventory, you're not going to get that way. And in some of the conversations I've had with the sellers, the interesting thing is which inventory is made available in programmatic. So to me, you kind of divide programmatic into the technology piece, which is just executing the buy, and then there's the data piece, and then there's the inventory. And so you could have 3 panels on each of those things.
So data-driven media buying is not new. I mean, the direct response people have been doing it forever with analog media. What's changed is that there's now digital media throwing off real-time data. Programmatic data-driven buying has been going on for a long time with search and now with display. It's starting to migrate into video and even in some small places with television and even out-of-home media.
Right.
So where would you chart the progression right now in terms of, I don't know, we're talking about numbers here. We had a joke with numbers, so why don't we put a number on it? Nobody's going to hold you accountable to it. I won't write about it. Where would you say we are percentage-wise in terms of what percentage of the business is being driven by data-driven buys versus conventional measurements?
Data-driven buys in real time or data-driven buys? Because I think all of media purchasing, buying is data-driven.
Sure.
I think it's, and sometimes it's long planning cycles, and sometimes it's, annual seasonality, but it's data informed.
Yeah, let me clarify that. From real-time consumer behaviors, the kind you get from targeting people in real time on media inventory versus measuring where you think people will be buying it and then measuring the post on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be risky here. I think it's low double digits at present, and it will probably expand, maybe double in size, but I don't think it's going to go to the majority of buying.
I would echo that, maybe 15. I would echo that, maybe. I'm sorry, I'm a bit of a low talker. I would say it's about 15%. Ish.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I think as we start to roll out more of the addressable television side of it, so it depends how you classify, back to your point, real time. The addressable piece is not real time yet, but it's incredibly more data-driven. I think that will speed up as the satellite and the cable providers allow us to use more of their inventory for that. I think display won't grow as much from where it is today. Online video should grow more, and social and search should continue to grow.
Okay, so some of this is semantics, but Interpublic and Magna have taken a position that within another 2 years, I believe that 50% of all media will be bought programmatically. I assume that means in some way data-driven. This is the position that your whole management team's taking. No mean to put you on the spot, but it's a benchmark we've been using because it's rare for an agency holding company to come out and take that position. I believe right now you're about 18%. So, maybe that's just a line in the sand. But the point is, the numbers you're all citing are much lower than I would have expected. So that might be comfort for the people in this room because it seems like the business isn't going to change as radically as MediaPost reports, that's for sure.
I'm going to take issue with the comfort question. Why should that be comfortable or not comfortable for the people in the room?
Yeah, so if
I mean, the reality is the disruption is happening, and it's just a question of how the business models adapt to it. And I think that has implications for agencies. I mean, we're up here talking about how different media agencies are today than they were 5 years ago. If you're media sellers, then that's a different implication. And if you're research companies, I mean, to me, I know I'm not posing the questions, but I want to make the observation that all 4 of us talked about how research has to change and the relationships with the research partners. I think Keith said it quite articulately when he said we need to readjust sort of where our investment dollars go. It's very different today than it was just a couple of years ago in terms of where we get our data and how we activate on that. And I think that's a huge change in the industry.
Yeah, I would just add that when we say 50% programmatic, that's actually what we call automation. So we get into workflow, process improvement, doing less work manually, using more technology-driven. So it's a combination of both programmatic buying and also workflow optimization, which is incredibly important. So change management is also a big part of this.
Okay. So a relatively small percentage of the business will ever be bought on the basis of real-time consumer behavior data but many more data inputs are going to be involved in you making your decisions. So let's switch to that. And how do you guys know what data to include when you have the entire candy store available to you? And more importantly, how do you know what to exclude and what not to use?
I mean, I think it starts with process. Pretty straightforward linear process in terms of determining budget, determining the target, determining audiences that are most likely to buy, audiences that have the most lifetime value, and then figuring out what data provides those answers, what data will allow us to measure, what data will allow us to optimize. So I think oftentimes it's sort of the researcher needs to decide the right mixture of data to accomplish a given, or to target and to measure and to optimize a given campaign.
I would just add that at Analect we have a data group. Literally, that's all the group does is look at data that's coming in. As Keith said, there's a process around that. We have to score the data. Sometimes often research is involved, but if it's a syndicated data source, then we're usually the entry point. But there's lots of other data. There's client data. There's other third-party data, and so we try to create a scorecard for each of the different 30 APIs that we have coming into our DMP, and you score it accordingly so you know what the quality is coming in. Because the challenge is sometimes you get a lot of data coming in, but it's not of very high quality.
So 200 million inbound updates every day. What's not included in that?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer. It's a lot of data.
Okay. So Bob, you definitely have that sound bite down with the Moneyball moment, and it's a great metaphor. So to me, it suggests like there's going to be a lot more creativity in the use of numbers and data, and that requires new kinds of people, right?
I think that's the biggest challenge facing this industry right now is talent. I think that with the data that we have available to us and the promise of more data, we need to not only recruit those types of skills, but train the people that we have in the organizations. And it's a joke that I use internally, but I'm sure the people on my floor don't think it's a joke. But we really need more math skills in the organization. People that can tell stories, people that can do programming, people that can interpret. And then the last step is that insights to action. We go out and we talk about this loop that we're building out across the globe in our organization. And we're taking it to clients, and we might be able to come up with a recommendation, but the clients aren't built yet to take a decision on that yet. There's so many things that need to change. But I think talent is the biggest issue facing our industry right now.
So we are shifting from madmen to mathmen, as Sir Martin said.
I never use that because it's Martin's quote, but you can use it.
But so specifically, you're obviously not recruiting for Major League Baseball, but they're hard theoretical mathematicians from people from Wall Street, actuarial science, hedge fund people, all of the above. Yeah.
We have all those people on our teams.
Right.
Literally, we have a guy that was introduced to me as, yes, he is a rocket scientist.
Right.
And so I think part of the way we're approaching it at Omnicom Media Group is a lot of those people sit in Analect and then help bring that change. But if you hear Monica Cairo, who runs OMD, talk about it, she knows that OMD has to evolve as well. A traditional agency and PhD has to evolve. It's all a big evolution and change, and it is a lot more math people. But I think Bob hit on a good point, which is we have to evolve, but clients are evolving. The research companies have to evolve. It's not just us in a vacuum.
I'm happy to take those names of those people and pass them to me.
Gladly.
I would just add that there's a combination, we think, of the types of talent that are required. So it's tempting to have too much of a quantitative bias, but the reality is that we still need storytellers, and we still need people who can interpret quantitative output, and they have to be trained, but they have to be able to tell a story that's supported by the data and supported by analytics. Media planners and buyers are not going to be PhDs. So they need to be retooled to work with PhDs. So then there's a large amount of change management and transformation that is required both on the agency side and on the client side.
I think the other piece of it is the content and the messages that we send out to the consumers. They need to be right, and the skill set in developing that is not the traditional ad agency 30-second spot skill set. So it's the combination of what the data is telling us about the consumer, their media habits, and then what do they know about the brand, what's their relationship with the brand, and what's the content that's going to get them to change their behavior to the behaviors that we want in the future.
So, yeah, it's a little off topic, but I think it's important to discuss, which is how much does this impact creative? And obviously, media agencies are now taking a more direct role because you're paid, owned, and earned. You're producing content. You're accelerating content discussions through social media. You probably won't say that you create ads. But so how much do you think data-driven, programmatic type stuff will begin to affect the creative content and messaging that you put out there?
Well, I think we'll know quicker how it's working. So if it will change and optimize over time, as well as the ad placements, the content that we produce will change as well. I think the people that we work with now to create content are more of the media partners. Many of them are here in this room. They have huge capabilities in really smart content creation, and a lot of the data goes into the human understanding that tells us what kind of content people want. It's not a surprise that people watch the Olympics because the production quality and the content is great. The same with ESPN. So, it's the combination of that plus, the technology and automation and real-time insertion of messages that's going to really be the future. The ad agencies need to, I think, reinvent what they do beyond the 30-second ad. Certainly are within the publicist group right now.
We see that in two ways. I can use a direct example. One is in the area of social. Obviously, there's a lot of real-time content generation in social, but even as more and more people push into online video, you see that a lot of people are trying to squeeze the same ads through that online video funnel, and you need more than that. So you need more creativity and more creative elements, sometimes shorter ad units and whatnot, to push through the online video funnel, and so we're definitely seeing that already today.
So let's go to the topic du jour about cross-platform. So what has been the impact of the shift or the evolution to data-driven media buying? What's been the net effect in terms of the way you allocate the mix?
But it's all about follow the consumer. So understanding the reach potential of online video plus television has meant reallocation of dollars with the same partners for a lot of the time, just to a different platform. With the addition of the YouTubes and the Facebooks to kind of round out that experience across all demos.
It's not having an impact.
I would say a big impact is our ability to quantify, learn more about what's wasteful, and have a much more granular understanding of ad delivery across a range of viewing habits. So getting smarter in our ability to identify the light TV viewer, better handle on appropriate channels to reach different groups, which we weren't able to do before because we didn't have cross-platform data. So we couldn't see how ads delivered across devices, across platform against the same group of people.
Well, one of the things that amazes me during this evolution is that shares haven't shifted a lot. TV remains dominant despite all the data available and despite all of the viewer adoption of social and other platforms. So this is not impacting the mix.
Yeah, but I think one of the most telling things from today's presentations was Alan's slide about I forgot if it was 18 to 24, Alan, or which it was, but how much viewing they were doing on the tablet and the smartphone. That was, of all the different slides I saw today, that one tells you about the future, which is where are they going for their video? They're going to a different device. So I think you might not see it on the top line of the water, but below the surface, yes, there is a lot of change going on.
Yeah, I don't mean to be controversial or try and stir things up, but it's my nature.
Surprise us.
With all respect to Sim. But let me ask one, and then I'll kind of throw it to the audience and see if we could get more practical questions. If you ask me, the biggest shift that's going on here is that in the past we had very common definitions of what the value of an audience was based on common denominators, whether they were Nielsen or MRI or Simmons or whatever ratings that you could agree upon, and that became negotiating currency. When you move to a DMP model, you're using proprietary insights, often from first-party data that you know about that the media side knows nothing about. Can you talk a little bit about how that's changed the way your organizations approach the market? I understand you're all measurement people for the most part, or data science people, but it's got to be having an impact in terms of the way, if nothing else, the buy side has no optics anymore on how you value their audience.
Right, and I think, you know, I think that in some ways, well, certainly from our side, that's a good thing. They need to figure out what they think they need to generate in terms of revenue, and then we will purchase it and allocate it as we see appropriate. We've been doing that for a long time in television, when we've been doing corporate buys and then allocating that inventory between the brands across a client with our TARDIS system. So really, it's more and more sophisticated versions of that. You know, the common currency idea is still out there, but the value is different than the currency, if that makes sense.
And the value is different on all the different transactions. I mean, we're not just talking about a 4 or 5 network world here. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of different types of mediums that you can buy and vehicles to spend the money. So the idea of having a single metric or a single currency, I think, is a little bit outmoded.
But you don't even have a single audience attribute the way you did in the old days, like a Nielsen demo. I mean, you guys use things like personas and all kinds of fuzzy things that the other side doesn't even know about now.
Well, that's not exactly true. Dave Poltrak's been presenting for I don't know how many years at the ARF, saying we need to move away from demos and into audience, purchase-based, definitions of audience. So I think they have a different take on it, but to say that they don't have any view into that, I don't think that's correct.
Well, Dave's a visionary, so.
So I mean, I would add to this, it does allow for going deeper with fewer partners. So selecting premium content providers that have high concentrations of the audiences that our clients want to reach, and then really building deep relationships with them. So instead of going really broad, working with a more fine-tuned group of partners, and then going broad with sort of the traditional approaches where we spray and we use programmatic.
I think the metrics will change in terms of what you want to accomplish too. I think it's not about, always about reach and frequency. It's like, are we driving transactional information, and how we define transactions, whether it's a sale or whether it's a test drive or whether it's sign up on a web page. I think you're getting better precision and you're getting more accountability.
So this is one of my other favorite questions then. Are we moving from brand soft attributes to performance attributes because you have the data available on the back end to measure the conversion? Are we shifting how we buy and evaluate media?
Well, I think most advertisers were evaluating it that way always. Are we driving sales? I think we're just getting more precise with better, more robust data sets to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the softer metrics, the brand funnel metrics, I mean, they're still relevant based on the types of products are selling, the sales cycle, price points, things like this. So while we are becoming more direct marketing-like in terms of targeting, measurement, and optimization, the response functions for brand advertising and direct marketing are very, very different, right? So brand, you've got to let those messages sink in. Direct response, typically, each exposure, you're less likely to respond if you're not a qualified audience. So I'd say yes and no. Those metrics are still very prominent, and they're useful proxies to optimize as long as the relationship between them to sales is established. It's often much easier to work with these proxies, and that's sort of where reach and frequency is still important. Because while we do want to try, drive transaction, reach and frequency can be fine-tuned. And so those are things that allow us to optimize as we go.
Okay, so we've shifted a little from art to science, but soon we'll go back to the art of the science with the Moneyball scenario. So I'd like to turn it over to the audience for any questions. If anybody would like to probe how data-driven agencies are evolving. Question back here.
Hi there, I'm Charlie Buckwalter with Symphony Advanced Media. I have 2 questions. The first one is for Kate, and this might be a variation on one of Joe's questions, but I really liked your paradigm of the scarcity and the abundance, and under the abundance, the high supply, low demand. What is the pace at which you see that the high supply is going to start dwindling and the demand is going to start picking up? What needs to happen for that to take place. If you could get that. And then my second question is going to be for Bob. Just curious to know if you put your SATs up on that same scatter chart.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So to answer your first question, I think that's where measurement really plays a strong role. As we learn more about the inventory that there's abundance of and not much value to, I think the publishers, and I count all media publishers as part of that, will want to continue to optimize all of their inventory and will learn what's more valuable and continue to fund that. That needs to be supported by ad dollars or consumer dollars, though, as well, because quality content costs money. So it's going to be a balance based on good measurement, good understanding of what consumers are looking for, and good support from marketing dollars.
And I would just add to this point that there's plenty of impressions. There's an endless number of impressions in the digital world, but there's a finite number of people that we've sized or that typically are sized and can buy the product. So endless volumes of impressions that can be bought programmatically really need to be understood in terms of the decomposition under them of unique users and frequency. This is a sort of a challenging topic. I've spent probably too much time going a little too deep into programmatic buys, ad network buys, looking at the overlap out there, and it's pretty astonishing what a lot of these buys are doing, not intentionally, but unintentionally driving up excessive frequency, because the ability to have a single view into that audience and then plan up from that audience, that's extremely hard to do.
Howard? Yeah. Microphone?
So one of the things we've been struggling with is trying to get a sense of how deeply, as a media company, we should invest in our own first-party data. By the nature of digital and by the nature of other things we could do to engage fans of a show with the desire to give us back information, we could build up a decent amount of first-party data. If we had that, how valuable would it be to you guys? Should I invest a boatload of money, a little bit of money?
From my sense, if you look at your competition going forward, a boatload would be good.
Yeah, my own view is that just like on Wall Street, the thing that separates a commodity from an equity is research that assigns a goodwill or intangible value. I would argue it's why ESPN has a really high value, perceived value in the marketplace, because they've done so much research to unlock the value of their audience connection, my opinion. Any other questions? Let me ask you all a question which kind of makes me wonder, because I know a lot of this stuff, there are practical decisions going on that go way beyond research and measurement, like business decisions. How much of your movement, your evolution, is being driven by practical decision matters of your agencies and your holding companies, and things like P&L, and the fact that you are investing in trading desks and infrastructure that is designed to make a profit from doing this?
I think from our perspective, it's thinking about the future and what business are we in. The business is changing so fast. We need to invest in the places that will build our capabilities to operate in the future.
I think from a WPP, Group M, Mindshare perspective, absolutely. I mean, I go back to the quote I said earlier. We need to ingest, enhance, and interrogate this data, because if we don't do it, somebody's going to do it to us.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that a lot of it's driven by the new technologies, the fact that there is that data out there, and we're all making that investment because we see the opportunity.
So it's certainly being driven by a strategic goal of your organizations, but there's also, how should I say, some business outcomes too. I mean, some trading groups are making a lot more money by arbitraging, and I don't want to put any fingers in anybody here, but people have been public on the fact that there's a lot of profit in doing business that way. Is that a compelling force driving the way you measure, evaluate, and trade audiences?
At least to my mind, any case where we can eliminate unnecessary intermediary layers or middlemen, particularly in ad tech, it's a smart thing to do business-wise. The closer we can be to the publishers, I think makes sense. But certainly with any public company, there are financial pressures.
The other thing, the other aspect I bring to that is, I think on Kate's slide, it was hard to read over my shoulder, but she had each of the different publishers or the media and technology companies where they have a data layer. I think we all recognize that as the opportunity that the agency can help cut across those layers and define that to reach the consumer. And so that's, I think, driving a lot of this as well, as we want to be able to go between the Google stack and the Facebook stack, and I don't even remember all the other stacks she's got up there, but I know the stacks we have on our list that are just like that.
We have time for maybe one more question. Way in the back there. If we could get a microphone.
Hi. Okay. I was just wondering, you're doing a lot of training of your own people, hiring new talent, different kinds of talent. How are you helping your advertisers keep up with all this and helping them understand the different ways that they can measure their ROI?
And I just say that you need a willing client, and then you can test your way in and really try to prove certain of these things out. And usually we find that clients are receptive to it. I mean, change is hard, so doing things a little differently, doing things in a new way, it's hard to do this hard to do it at scale. But I think most clients, at least the ones I'm encountering, are very receptive to new ways of doing things. I think part of it is certain measurement techniques that have existed for a while, like the marketing mix model. Like, these are great models, super helpful for high-level decisions about like setting budgets, but these models haven't cracked the low-level granular decisions of where media planning and buying actually happens. So once we sort of explain these things to clients, we show them that certain techniques are great, but they're not enough, we can usually begin to test new ways of doing things.
I think sometimes we don't need to spend a lot of time training our clients. We have some pretty smart clients who are figuring it out for themselves as well. There's one in the audience here today. But then we have other clients that need lots of hand-holding and want to work in partnership to learn.
From my perspective, it's not just the client perspective, it's the vendor perspective, it's the media sellers. It's all that. I have to do a shameless plug for the Council for Research Excellence Education Committee, which I chair, which is really trying to bring more young people to address all these issues that we've been talking about on the stage in terms of bringing young people into the fields of research. There's no better time to be in research. I mean, think about all the fun things and developments that are going on. So if you have internships, please send them to me or send them, we can post them on the CRE website. And we're also trying to develop tracks to get people aware of all these things so that the people that are in research today know how to adjust their skills for the data future, and that the other young people that aren't yet in research, we can attract them into research.
Okay, well, I apologize if I was irreverent or trying to stir something up, but it's the last panel of the day, and it's not my milieu here, so you guys didn't bite, but come back to a MediaPost conference and we'll grill you a little tougher.
Interesting.